Thank you, Philip, for the sharing. And let's welcome Diana, we always call her Dai Dai, and Camilla, to share with us about how East define talk with West define. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. So happy to be here in Japan. I can hardly believe it. I'm glad to be at my second DevCon as well. And well, I guess we should introduce ourselves. First, I'm Camila Russo. I'm a journalist, used to be at Bloomberg. I'm writing a book on Ethereum and have a daily newsletter focusing on DeFi called The Defiant.
Yeah, hi. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here to share some facts and insights from Eastern DeFi community. And I am Diane Dai. People call me Dai Dai, just like the double stable coin. Yeah. I used to be the CMO of DDEX, a decentralized exchange. And I left DDEX 2 months ago to start up my own third party marketing company to help like blockchain projects come to China and do growth hacking in Asian community. Yeah. So let's start here.
Yeah. So we now that we're here in Japan, we wanted to talk about how DeFi in the East compares with DeFi in the West. It seems like there's like a divide between East and West where each side doesn't really know much about the other. So we wanted to help fix that. And we're starting with the common perceptions each side has of each other. Okay, so for the West, it seems like looking at the main projects listed on DeFi Pulse, which seems to be like the market like reference, it seems like most every project is based in the West, but there's maybe this perception that there's this whole other world in the East that we don't really know what's going on, but there must be some really interesting stuff happening there. With the users, there's also this perception that most users are probably in the West, but because Asian-based users, are fine with more centralized products and exchanges like Binance, and are more like risk-prone, speculative kind of users. Is like the common perception. And on the investor side, there's this perception that Eastern-based investors are really focusing on DeFi.
Yeah, and I have done some interviews with Asian projects and investors, and users will always question, like, "Hey, how can I make money from these DeFi projects? If a DeFi project cannot make money for me, it should not exist." Yeah, and so Asian projects will focus more on like market adoption and get more users, and they talk less about am I fully decentralized? Maybe it doesn't matter so much. Yeah, and when it comes to the Asian investors, actually a friend from Hashkey Capital, which founded Ethereum in the early stage, he just told me that, hey, we don't really seriously take DeFi as a vertical. Just think about a bigger thing like open finance or digital assets.
Okay, so we'll try to clear up some of these perceptions and see which are true and which are false. Um, okay, so here, look, we took DeFi Pulse as the reference and looked at the 20 projects listed there. They rank projects based on value locked in the protocol. And unfortunately, yeah, the East projects the color isn't showing up there, but the overwhelming majority of projects in DeFi Pulse are based in the West, either with headquarters in the West or most of the teams based in the West with 500 million locked in these projects. And while just 10% of the value is locked in Eastern-based projects. So here, InstaDApp, Nuo Network, and Kyber are the only Eastern-based projects of the 20 listed in DeFi Pulse. Of the Western-based projects, the overwhelming majority of value is focused on lending protocols, with obviously most of it in Maker.
Yeah. Okay, and actually, we can hardly see Asian projects listed on Western data website, but actually there are more and more Eastern DeFi projects. And one interesting fact is that most of Eastern DeFi projects have issued tokens. There is no tokenless protocol here in Asian DeFi community. We love to take advantage of token economics.
Yeah, it seems like in the West there's been kind of this demonization of tokens in projects, but that's not going on in the East as much. Right. Okay, so then we looked at the investors that are putting money into these top projects on DeFi Pulse. And we saw that, again, the concentration is, I mean, they're mostly concentrated in the West. The two most active funds are KR1 and Polychain Capital. KR1 is based in Europe, and Polychain is based in California. And of these top investors in DeFi, only two funds are based in an Eastern country.
Yes, and maybe we don't heard about it so much, but there are some emerging DeFi investors in the East, and I love to mention that, like this one, CMB International, which is owned by China Merchant Bank, is a government fund also involved in DeFi investments.
Right. Okay, and finally, we took a look at the users of DeFi, and here is where we can get a really interesting conclusion. So what we did is we looked at the top 10 projects on DeFi Pulse and saw the traffic from that they were getting in their website from SimilarWeb. The caveat here is like many users will use VPNs, but this will give you like a broad overview of where the users are coming from. And yes, there's still, most of the biggest percentage of users are coming from the West, but there's a significant amount of users coming from the East. Even as most of the projects are based in the West and most of the investment is based in the West, there is a significant number of Eastern-based users. So it seems like there is a huge opportunity there. There is interest in decentralized finance from Asia that maybe founders and funders can take advantage of.
Yes, and maybe there are more than 55% in East, because most of Chinese users use VPN sometimes. Yeah, and Ruan Christensen from MakerDAO just came to Beijing last month and do some meetups and AMAs to do the fundraising, and he told us the largest market for MakerDAO CDP is here in China. Yeah, so actually I anticipate that DeFi market will finally scale up in Asia, maybe especially in China. Yeah, and we are all waiting for a killer DApp, which is fully not that decentralized, but decentralized. Important things is this killer DApp. This killer DApp can open the door for everyone to make real money with it. Yeah, that's the first motivation for users.
Okay. That's all. All right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Camilla and Dada.